to a serious topic. I want to talk about August 3rd of 2019. For those not familiar, this is where a gunman killed 23 people, injured another 23 at a Walmart Supercenter. I know that at this time you had 6 months in El Paso, right? Tell us about your experience around this time.
When August 3rd happened, I was really feeling burnt out at that time with being a
6 months
reporter.
in.
6 months in, the honeymoon phase had worn off, and this job is just, I was like, this is so hard every single day to have, the story idea. I wasn't necessarily having a ton of good ideas because people didn't know who I was. They weren't coming to me with their problems, and I wasn't having that success with the community. And I was exhausted, also having, how hard the multimedia journalist job is to do all the steps. Like, I was mentally and physically just like worn down. So I was off actually on that Saturday, and I got called in, and the events of that day, just getting out there to the scene, on top of this Yellow Vista Mall, Walmart on the park up there, and just seeing just the chaos and the people scattering around, trying to track people down, and speaking with multiple people who were inside and hearing their stories, and just kind of vicariously living through that day for about 12 hours, and then going to a shelter where the family reunification center was, where people who were inside the Walmart were supposed to go to find their families. And I was the first person to speak with the family of one of the victims of the shooting, which was the Anglesby family. She came to me. Angie Anglesby came and was obviously beside herself, looking for her mother, who it came out later was lost in the shooting. It was just like a palpable grief and tragedy in the air for really a week straight, I feel like. I broke down, lost it after that day. It was the most probably emotionally charged event of my life at that point, having to deal with so much tragedy and so much pain, and people telling me how much they'd lost in so short of a time period, but also the fact that came out later that it was an attack from an outsider, allegedly telling police that he wanted to, or telling prosecutors that it was a racially motivated attack on a border community because he was looking to stop an invasion of people into this country. That put things into an entirely different light as well, because it was like, this wasn't somebody who snapped suddenly. This was somebody who allegedly drove for hours from the central part of the state to hurt El Pasoans. That was a direct attack on this community. And I think that event and the tragedy of it is going to always be my why I'm still in journalism, and why I care so much about the job that I'm doing. Because the aftermath of that attack was one of the most periods of love and outpouring of support that I've ever gotten from anyone, and it came from El Pasoans who would see me doing my job and telling stories about the recovery and the resilience of this community after the attack, and they would come up and they would thank me, and they would make sure that we were doing okay, and they would want to tell us that what we were doing mattered. And hearing it over and over and over again, and finally understanding why the work that I was doing mattered to El Pasoans, and it wasn't just about me being on TV, that was a turning point for my life.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. And as an El Pasoan, I hate to speak for most El Pasos, but what I felt, and I think a lot of people felt, is that we couldn't believe it. I just in El Paso. I mean, I know that you're newcomer to El Paso, but the fact is that those things don't happen in El Paso, right? We hear about that, and we're like, oh, it happened somewhere else. So when it happened, I mean, it was, first of all, people couldn't believe it, and once it hit, you're like, why? And there were so many other questions. And of course, we're turning into the news and then watching another source and then another, because we want to hear so much. And again, that's where like you said, now you can see the role that you play does make an impact. The words that you say, who you interview, the story that you choose, because I'm sure there was a lot of things that you could have talked about, and everything was going to be listen to, of course, but it's just choosing, okay, this is the take that we're going to do, and this is what's going to impact more people, right? So again, that was just something that not that I was curious, but definitely wanted to hear from your standpoint, because you were in the front line reporting, and it wasn't only day one or day two. How long was how long time did you spend reporting on it? Was it
we did August 3rd stories for 2 straight weeks at the very least. Obviously follow-ups down the road with victims and their recovery process, different families and how they were trying to move past it. But like that of single event consumed my life for probably, I would say, the next month.
Really? And that's what you said, that even though I'm sure there was a lot of difficult time around that, having to do all the work that you do, but that's what helped you get through, okay, this is the reason why I'm doing it. It's just a reminder, and from there on, it give you a different light on what you do, right?
Absolutely. No, I'm so grateful for the community for coming out, because I was also an outsider at that time. I'd only been here for a couple months, and they didn't have to in any way tell me, why the work mattered to them, but they did, and they came out in droves to make sure that we understood that, these stories matter to them, and that they loved us for the work that we were doing, and that was so important to hear.
All right.